I'm Jenna with Refurbished at Nap Time, and today I'm going to show you how I did the resin on this project. So I'm using marine epoxy resin, which is a clear drying resin. It is a two-part hardener and resin combination. It comes with these pre-measured cups, and I always wear gloves while I'm working with resin as it is extremely sticky. Also, if you're not in a well-ventilated area, you should probably do this part outside. I start by getting my cups ready, and I'm going to use the bottle that's labeled resin. You need to do equal parts of the resin and equal parts of the hardener. If your amounts are not equal, it will not harden correctly. So it is very important that you measure to the same spot. Now typically I'll pour in the amount that I need into my measuring cup, and then I'll pour it into like a solo cup. But for this one, I just put them together. And I probably won't do that again because you'll see that the bottle got extremely full, but I didn't realize how much I was going to need. So now I'm going to take my hardener, and I filled it to 250 for each. So you've got 250, and then I filled it the rest of the way to 500 so that I had equal parts of both. Now the hardener does tend to dry on the bottle, so that one's a little bit harder to open up. Once I've got it open, I'm just going to take my measuring cup and I'll measure up to the 500 level. The hardener is much thinner, so it does come out a lot faster. I then take the wooden stick that I showed you, and I'm going to mix this really, really well. You want to go in circles, you kind of want to go up and down. I did speed this up because you do mix for at least a good minute, because you need to make sure that it's all thoroughly mixed. And I cut out part of this because it took me a good bit. And then you just start to pour, and I poured in little spots, and then I'd pour strips. You want to make sure you get it close to your sides. Then I continue to just fill in all of the empty space. Now you'll see I didn't have enough resin to actually cover every single location, but that's where your wooden stick and your heat gun will come in, because applying the heat to the resin allows it to become more movable, makes it a little more liquidy, and it helps it move around where you're working. You want to be sure to scrape the entire measuring cup, get all of that resin out because you're going to need every little bit of it. And then I just take the stick and I just spread the resin around. You can see where the color of the paper starts to change. You want to get all up in your corners. Typically, if you're doing like a resin pour where it's just pouring over the sides, you would have enough that it would just drape over the sides, but because this is in a frame, it's got nowhere to move. So it's kind of important that you get to every location of the frame. You don't want any empty gaps. And this is the part that just takes a little bit of time. At this stage, you are able to kind of move your frame around to help the resin move, but once you've got it where you need it and it's setting to dry, you do not touch it. You need it to stay perfectly level, and don't move your project for at least 24 hours. Now I applied the heat. This helps to get any bubbles out of your resin, because as you're mixing your resin in your cup, it creates bubbles in it. And once you start to pour it, it gets some bubbles. But if you apply heat on a low setting, it will then get the bubbles out, and it will help the resin move to where you want it to move. You can continue to use your stick to get in those areas that you might have missed. I definitely recommend the heat gun, but you have to be careful because it is possible to burn your resin if you leave the heat on it for too long in a certain spot, or if your heat is too high. Now leave your project alone and let it dry for 24 hours. You can find Refurbished at Naptime on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, and at refurbishedatnaptime.com.